Hey.
Jesus.
What?
This guy got hit with a medicine ball and knocked his ass out.
Oh, I believe it.
I'm gonna play Harry Potter.
Okay, real quick, will you do something? Will you see if my straightener is down here? Because I can't find it.
Isn't that what we took downstairs?
No, what you took downstairs you brought back up, and it was my crimper.
Baby, trying to find your shit is amazing.
Huh?
I said trying to find your shit is amazing. It's
What
like
do you mean?
scavenger hunt.
Not the response I expected. It should be down there. It's light blue.
It is. And today on the map, X does not mark the spot because Chrissy don't know where she puts her shit. Amy, I'm not touching it all the way.
Half the way as opposed to half the way? There it is. No, not that one. That one.
This one?
Yep.
I was like, baby, you know what? I'm blind.
Oh, yeah, you don't have your glasses on.
I don't have my eyes on yet for the day.
My bad. We found it.
I'm blinder than a bat.
Alright, let's get started, guys.
Fat girl.
For my TikTok live viewers, just remember that I will not be answering any personal comments or making any remarks or responses as I do this segment because that messes up the flow of the segment. With that being said, let's get started. Rodney James Alcala was an American serial killer and sex offender who was sentenced to death in California for 5 murders committed in the state between 1977 and 1979 and received an additional sentence of 25 years to life after pleading guilty to 2 homicides committed in New York in 1971 and 1977. While he has been conclusively linked to 8 murders, Alcala's true number of victims remains unknown and could be much higher. Authorities believe the actual number is as high as 130. Alcala compiled a collection of more than 1,000 photographs of women, teenage girls and boys, many in sexually explicit poses. In 2016, he was charged with the 1977 murder of a woman identified in one of his photographs. Alcala is known to have assaulted one other pornographic subject, and police have speculated that others could be rape or murder victims as well. Prosecutors have said that Alcala toyed with his victims, strangling them until they lost consciousness, then waiting until they revived, sometimes repeating this process several times before finally killing them. One police detective described Alcala as a killing machine, and others have compared him to Ted Bundy. Alcala is often referred to as the dating game killer due to his 1978 appearance on the television show The Dating Game in the midst of his murder spree. Alcala was born Rodrigo Jacques Alcala Buquar in San Antonio, Texas, to a Mexican-American couple, Raul Alcala Buquar and Ana Maria Gutierrez. In 1951, Alcala's father moved the family to Mexico, then abandoned them 3 years later. In 1954, when Alcala was about 11 years old, his mother moved him and his 2 sisters to suburban Los Angeles. My nose is okay. In 1961, at the age of 17, Alcala joined the United States Army and served as a clerk. I say this every time this comes up, but I feel like every serial killer I do a segment on has served in some form of military service. And I'm just wondering how they got away with that. Like, don't we do psychological checks? I feel like something would have been a red flag, you know? In 1964, after what was described as a nervous breakdown, during which he went AWOL and hitchhiked from Fort Bragg to his mother's house, he was diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder by a military psychiatrist and discharged on medical grounds. After leaving the Army, Alcala graduated from the UCLA School of Fine Arts and later studied film under Roman Polanski, which, if you all know the Charles Manson story, is the husband of Sharon Tate, who was murdered by the Mansons, at New York University. Alcala committed his first known crime on September 25th, 1968, when an eyewitness in Los Angeles called police after watching him lure an 8-year-old girl named Hallie Shapiro into his Hollywood apartment. When the police arrived, the girl was found alive, having been raped and beaten with a steel bar, but Alcala had fled. To evade the resulting arrest warrant, Alcala left the state and enrolled in the New York University Film School using the name John Berger. In 1971, he obtained a counseling job at a New Hampshire arts camp for children using a slightly different alias of John Berger, just different spelling. E was the first one, it was Berger, and then it was Burger. In June 1971, Cornelia Michael Crilly, a 23-year-old TWA flight attendant, was found raped and strangled in her Manhattan apartment. Her murder remained unsolved until 2011. Sad. The FBI added Alcala to its list of 10 most wanted fugitives in early 1971. A few months later, 2 children attending the arts camp noticed his photo on an FBI poster at the post office. Alcala was arrested and extradited to California. By then, Shapiro's parents had relocated their entire family to Mexico and refused to allow her to testify at Alcala's trial. Since the authorities were unwilling to charge him with rape and attempted murder without their primary witness, Alcala was convicted of child molestation and sentenced to 3 years. They had him. And they fucked up. Alcala was paroled in 1974 after 17 months, less than 2 months after his release. He was rearrested for assaulting a 13-year-old girl identified in court records as Julie J., who had accepted what she thought would be a ride to school. Alcala was again paroled after serving only 2 years. There's multiple times that this guy, I think, was caught, and they just did nothing about it. They just let him go, and they messed up, and there's no way to get around that. They had him multiple times, and they just let him go. After Alcala's second release in 1977, his Los Angeles parole officer took the unusual step of permitting a repeat offender and known flight risk to travel to New York City. How'd that go? What do you think? How'd that go? NYPD cold case investigators now believe that a week after arriving in Manhattan, Alcala killed Ellen Jane Hoover, 23, the daughter of the owner of the popular Hollywood nightclub Ciro's and goddaughter of Dean Martin and Sammy Davis Jr. Her remains were found buried under heavy rocks on a hillside overlooking the Hudson River, about half a mile west of the Phelps Memorial Hospital in North Tarrytown and Westchester County. In 1978, Alcala worked briefly at the Los Angeles Times as a typesetter and was interviewed by members of the Hillside Strangler Task Force as part of their investigation of known sex offenders. Although Alcala was ruled out as a Hillside Strangler, which we all know was Kenneth Bianchi and his cousin, he was arrested and served a brief sentence for marijuana possession. During this period, Alcala convinced hundreds of young women and men and women that he was a professional fashion photographer and photographed them for his portfolio. A Times coworker later recalled that Alcala shared his photos with workmates. "I thought it was weird, but I was young. I didn't know anything," she said. "When I asked why he took the photos, he said their moms asked him to. I remember the girls were naked." I mean, I'm a mom, and I certainly wouldn't be asking anybody to take pictures of my kid without clothes on. Especially my underage kid. It's like, no. He said he was a professional, so in my mind, I was being a model for him, said a woman who allowed Alcala to photograph her in 1979. The portfolio also included, quote, spread after spread of naked teenage boys. She said most of the photos are sexually explicit and most of the subjects remain unidentified. Police fear that some of the subjects may be additional cold case victims. In 1979, according to later trial testimony, Alcala knocked unconscious and raped Monique Hoyt, 15, while she was posing for photographs. Excuse me. In 1978, Alcala was a contestant on the popular game show The Dating Game. Host Jim Lange introduced him as a successful photographer who got his start when his father found him in the dark room at the age of 13. Fully developed. Between takes, you might find him skydiving or motorcycling. Sorry, y'all, I have a cough, and I don't know where it came from, but this is where we are. A fellow Bachelor contestant later described Alcala as a very strange guy with bizarre opinions. Alcala won the competition and a date with the episode's Bachelorette, Cheryl Bradshaw, who subsequently refused to go out with him because she found him creepy. Fair enough. Criminal profiler Pat Brown, noting that Alcala killed at least 3 women after his dating game appearance, speculated that this rejection might have been an exacerbating factor. Brown said, one wonders what that did in his mind. That is something he would not take too well. Psychopaths don't understand the rejection. They think that something is wrong with that girl. She played me. She played hard to get. I'm going to pause out for a minute. I need to get a drink. I'm like really thirsty and I'm coughing a lot. So give me just a minute. Had to get a drink. Robin Samso from Huntington Beach disappeared somewhere between the beach and her ballet class on June 20th, 1979. Her decomposing body was found 12 days later in the Los Angeles foothills. Samso's friends told police that a stranger had approached them on the beach asking to take their pictures. Detectives circulated a sketch of the photographer, and Alcala's police officer recognized him. Parole officer recognized him. During a search of Alcala's mother's house in Monterey Park, police found a rental receipt for a storage locker in Seattle, and in the locker they found Samso's earrings. Alcala was arrested in July 1979 and held without bail. That's gross. In 1980, he was tried. Why can I not speak English today? Convicted and sentenced to death for Samso's murder, but the verdict was overturned by the California Supreme Court because jurors had been improperly informed of his prior sex crimes. In 1986, after a second trial virtually identical to the first, except for omission of the prior criminal record, he was again convicted and sentenced to death. Sorry, eyeliner is hard to do and talk at the same time, so give me just a second. In 2001, a Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals nullified the second conviction, in part because a witness was not allowed to support Alcala's contention that the park ranger who found Samso's body had been, quote, hypnotized by police investigators. I feel like if police investigators could hypnotize witnesses, they'd have a much better conviction rate. Like, we could solve John Bonet's murder just by hypnotizing her parents. Well, her dad, because, you know, her mom is no longer with us. But you know what I mean. We could solve a lot of problems if police officers actually had the ability to hypnotize their witnesses, I would think. That's just me, though. While preparing their third prosecution in 2003, Orange County, California, investigators learned that Alcala's DNA sampled under a new state law. Over his objections, matched semen left at the rape murder scene of 2 women in Los Angeles. Additional evidence, including another cold case DNA match in 2004, led to Alcala's indictment for the murders of 4 additional women. Jill Barcombe, 18, a New York runaway found rolled up like a ball in a Los Angeles ravine in 1977, and originally thought to have been a victim of the Hillside Strangler. Georgia Wickstead, 27, bludgeoned in her Malibu apartment in 1977. Charlotte Lamb, 31, raped, strangled, and left in the laundry room of an El Segundo apartment complex in 1978. And Jill Parentio, I'm almost positive I didn't say that right, 21, killed in her Burbank apartment in 1979. I'm sorry, y'all give me a second. Baby, can I have one of those pillows?
Here.
Thank you. Oh my god, my back is killing me. Recent hip surgery, so the way I have to sit, it's not exceptionally comfortable. And my back pillow is downstairs. All of the bodies were found posed in carefully chosen positions. Another pair of earrings found in Alcala's Seattle storage locker had residue that matched Lamb's DNA. During his incarceration between the second and third trials, Alcala wrote and published a book, You the Jury, in which he claimed innocence in the Samso case and suggested a different suspect. He also filed 2 lawsuits against the California penal system for a slip and fall incident and for refusing to provide him a low-fat diet. Guess you gotta watch your figure while you're in prison. I don't know. In 2003, prosecutors entered a motion to join the Samso charges with those of the 4 newly discovered victims. Alcala's attorneys contested it, as one of them explained, quote, "If you're a juror and you hear one murder case, you may be able to have reasonable doubt, but it's very hard to say you have reasonable doubt on all 5, especially when 4 of the 5 aren't alleged by eyewitnesses but are proven by DNA matches." In 2006, the California Supreme Court ruled in the prosecution's favor, and in February 2010, Alcala stood trial on the 5 joint charges. So, he ended up being tried for all 5 together. For the third trial, Alcala elected to act as his own attorney. He took the stand in his own defense and for 5 hours played the roles of both interrogator and witness, asking himself questions. Addressing himself as Mr. Alcala in a deeper than normal voice and then answering them. Which, I don't know, to me would say he's not quite right in the head. I mean, I guess people talk to themselves a lot, but, like, having a full, like, interrogation with yourself in a courtroom for 5 hours, like, I really think that he may have used that opportunity to kind of set up maybe an insanity defense, if that makes sense. Like, because, you know, I mean, anybody with 2 eyes is going to be like, yeah, there's something not quite right about this dude. That's my opinion. During this self-questioning and answering session, he told jurors, often in a rambling monotone, that he was at Knott's Berry Farm applying for a job as a photographer at the time Samso was kidnapped. He showed the jury a portion of his 1978 appearance on The Dating Game in an attempt to prove that the earrings found in his Seattle locker were his, not Samso's. Jed Mills, the actor who competed against Alcala on the show, told a reporter that earrings were not yet a socially acceptable accoutrement for men in 1978. He said, "I had never seen a man with an earring in his ear. I would have noticed them on him." Alcala made no significant attempt to dispute the 4 added charges other than to assert that he could not remember killing any of the women. As part of his closing argument, he played the Arlo Guthrie song, Alice's Restaurant, in which the protagonist tells a psychiatrist that he wants to kill. After less than 2 days' deliberation, the jury convicted him on all 5 counts of first-degree murder.
Who are you? Who is this? Cappuccino?
Yeah.
You're always in my bubble.
Yeah. Fuck, where did I leave off?
Where you played the song.
Thank you.
No worries.
After less than 2 days of deliberation, the jury convicted him on all 5 counts of first-degree murder. A surprise witness during the penalty phase of the trial was Tally Shapiro, which, as you know, I mentioned previously, her family did not want her to come back and testify. So, nobody knew that she was going to come back and give any sort of victim impact statement or anything until the day of his, actual conviction. Alcala's first known victim. Richard Rappaport, a psychiatrist paid by Alcala and the only defense witness, testified that borderline personality disorder could explain Alcala's claims that he had no memory of committing the murders. Now, I have borderline personality disorder with bipolar, and it has manic phases to it. My words are just all over the place. But I don't ever recall having any kind of blackout experience where I can't recall the things that I did. I don't know if maybe somebody else has had that aspect of it, but I've never had it. I also could not find anything on the internet that supported the fact that people with borderline personality disorder have blackouts like that. Now, dissociative identity disorder was not really a big thing back then. I've seen it more in common with that, or even alcoholism, blackouts from drinking, self-medicating, drugs, whatever, but not really so much borderline personality disorder. But DID was not really a thing they diagnosed a lot back then. So it's very possible that he was not borderline, but he was dissociative, if that makes sense. The prosecutor argued that Alcala was a sexual predator who knew what he was doing was wrong and didn't care. And, I mean, that's probably accurate. Let's be honest. In March 2010, Alcala was sentenced to death for a 3rd time. In March 2010, the Huntington Beach, California, and New York City police departments released 120 of Alcala's photographs and sought the public's help in identifying them in the hopes of determining if any of the women and children he photographed were additional victims. Approximately 900 additional photos could not be made public, police said, because they were too sexually explicit. In the first few weeks, police reported that approximately 21 women had come forward to identify themselves, and at least 6 families said they believed they recognized loved ones who disappeared years ago and were never found. None of the photos were unequivocally connected to a missing persons case or unsolved murder until 2013, when a family member recognized the photo of Christine Thornton, 28, whose body was found in Wyoming in 1982. Okay, as of July 2022, 110 of the original photos remain posted online, and police continue to solicit the public's help with further identification. In June 2012, after his 2010 conviction, New York authorities announced they would no longer pursue Alcala because of his status as a convict awaiting execution. Nevertheless, in January 2011, a Manhattan grand jury indicted him for the murders of Cornelia Crilly, the TWA flight attendant, and Ellen Hoover, the Ciro's heiress, in 1971 and 1977, respectively. In June 2012, he was extradited to New York, where he initially entered not guilty pleas on both counts. We're going to break just for another minute. In December 2012, he changed both pleas to guilty, citing a desire to return to California to pursue appeals of his death penalty conviction. On January 7, 2013, a Manhattan judge sentenced Alcala to an additional 25 years to life. The death penalty has not been an option in New York State since 2007. In 2010, Seattle police named Alcala as a person of interest in the unsolved murders of Antoinette Whitaker, 13, in July 1977, and Joyce Gaunt, 17, in February 1978. Alcala rented the Seattle area storage locker in which investigators found jewelry belonging to two of his California victims in 1979. Other cold cases were reportedly targeted for reinvestigation in California, New York, New Hampshire, and Arizona. In March 2011, investigators in Marin County, California, north of San Francisco, announced they were confident that Alcala was responsible for the 1977 appearance of Pamela Jean Lamson, 19, who disappeared after making a trip to Fisherman's Wharf to meet a man who had offered to photograph her. Her battered, naked body was subsequently found in Marin County near a hiking trail. With no fingerprints or usable DNA, charges were never filed, but police claimed that there was sufficient evidence to convince them that Alcala committed the crime. In September 2016, Alcala was charged with the murder of Christine Ruth Thornton, 28, who disappeared in 1977. In 2013, a relative recognized her as the subject of one of Alcala's photos made public by Huntington Beach PD and NYPD. Her body was found in Sweetwater County, Wyoming, and can't talk. In 1982, but was not identified until 2015 when DNA supplied by Thornton's relatives matched tissue samples from her remains. Alcala admitted taking the photo, but not to killing the woman who was approximately 6 months pregnant at the time of her death. Thornton is the first alleged murder victim linked to the Alcala photos made public in 2010. The 73-year-old Alcala was reportedly too ill to make the journey from California to Wyoming to stand trial on the new charges. Alcala died of unspecified natural causes in Corcoran, California on July 24th, 2021, at the age of 77. A biographical film about Alcala's life titled Dating Game Killer was directed by Peter Medak and broadcast on the American Television Network investigation Discovery, produced December 3rd, 2017. In 2021, Netflix announced a biographical film, Rodney and Cheryl, starring Anna Kendrick, which depicts the story of Alcala's appearance on the dating game in the midst of his killing spree. Okay, so that would make it for me today. I have to go get dressed so we can get ready to go to physical therapy. I will see you all tomorrow. We will be doing the color green. Be here for that. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. Make good choices and be cautiously kind to others. Have a wonderful day. Bye, guys.